The next part that I need to go through with you is how to complete the square. And it's 10.5. This is probably what I would consider the hardest part of the chapter. I'm going to do 2 examples with you just to go over it, make sure you know how to do it. The first portion of completing the square is the example that's on page 698. I'm just going to go through right here, and then I'll do one of your examples, one of the evens. All right. Well, first, one of the most important things to remember with completing the square is it's the best method to use if this value in front of the x squared is a 1. And right now you can see there's a 3. But because 18 and 12 are divisible by 3, we can divide everything by 3 and end up with an equation, x squared plus 4x equals 6. And I'm leaving myself room because I know I'm going to have to complete my square. All right, now I can start completing my square, and I'm going to take my b value here, which is 4. I'm going to divide by 2 and square it to put as my c value here, which is going to be 4. Whatever I do to this side, I must do to this side. And I end up with x plus 2 squared equals 10. You remember 4 divided by 2. This part in the parentheses actually is the value that goes into the perfect square binomial here. And we make sure that we add whatever we added here as our c value to both sides, and so that we now combine 6 plus 4 is 10 over here. Once I'm at this stage, I can just now do as I did with 10.4, take a square root of both sides. And I need to remember it's a positive and negative square root of 10. And I get left with x plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 10. I have to subtract 10 from both sides, 2 from both sides. And I end up with my 2 possible answers, x equals negative 2 plus square root of 10, and x equals negative 2 minus the square root of 10. If I add the square root of 10, I get 1.16. And I subtract the square root of 10, I get negative 5.16. And those are my 2 answers. So that is completing the square. Now I'm going to direct you to try, let's see, I'm going to direct you to try number 22 in the exercises, just because it's slightly harder. And start it now before you start the next video, because I'm going to do that with you. Actually, I'm not going to end this video. I still have time on it. So start it now. I'm going to switch my paper. And let's see if your answer matches up to the answer I come up with. (22) is 2n squared plus 4n plus 1 equals 10n plus 9. Well, clearly that's not quite in the right format to complete the square just yet. To do so, first I'm going to subtract everything. So 2n squared, and if I subtract 10n, I get minus 6n, and I subtract 9, I get minus 8 equals 0. I'm going to divide everything by 2. And end up with n squared minus 3n minus 4 equals 0. Now that I've taken out the coefficient from in front, I'm ready to complete the square. I'm going to set this up this way. And I'm ready now to find my C value. I take this value here, I get negative 3 divided by 2 squared, and I can add 9/4 on this side, and then 9/4 on this side. N minus 3/2 squared is now what I have left as my perfect square binomial, and is equal to 16/4. 4 becomes 16/4 plus 9/4, which is 25/4. I'm all set now to take the square root of both sides. We have to remember it's plus or minus square root. And I end up with n minus 3/2 equals plus or minus 5/2. And my very last step is to add 3/2 to both sides. And when I do that, I end up with n equals 3/2 plus or minus 5/2, or 3/2 plus 5/2, which is 8/2 or 4, and 3/2 minus 5/2, which is negative 2/2 or negative 1. So my two answers here are going to be 4 and negative 1. I hope that's the answer you had. If you have any questions, please reach out to me so you're ready before the test, especially on this portion.